We're continuing, rather, 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 10 through 12 is where we'll start and perhaps even wind up. We're dealing here with soberness and godliness being enjoined on us, two of our obligations. Therefore, gird up the loins of your mind. Well, I said 10 through 12. It's actually 13 through 16. I think I goofed. Anyway, therefore, gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, not conforming yourselves to the former lusts, as in your ignorance. But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. Therefore, that is based on what the apostle has said so far. Brother Guyon Wood said it probably as good as it could be said. Notwithstanding the fact that you are now called upon to suffer a variety of trials, from verse 6, because of your faithfulness to Christ, fidelity to his cause, and in view of the glorious and unfading inheritance which awaits, being reserved in heaven for you. Gird up the loins of your mind. Because it's always will be, the best is yet to come. So we gird up our loins and we get back into the heat of battle. Gird up the loins of your mind. Exactly what does that involve? I found something I had never found before, and that's a little drawing that shows you how to gird up your loins. I didn't, first time I ever crossed one of these things, but it teaches us how the ancients used to do it. They wore the long flowing gowns, or whatever they called them. And if you were trying to work in your garden, or you had to fight somebody in battle, David and Goliath kind of thing, it's hard to do when you got this gown down around your leg. You get tripped up or whatever. It's hard to move around. So they would make it into a pair of shorts, basically. They would tie it up, and this would enable them to squat, bend their knees, whatever. They'd be able to engage in more activities. That's, of course, the literal meaning of girding up your mind. Here, Peter's using it figuratively. It refers to the gathering up of all improper thoughts, feelings, and activities of the mind, and restraining them. And do not allow aimless thoughts of the mind to hinder your progress toward heaven. You'll take on a project, for example, and there's this little voice in the back of your head keeps saying, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. Gird up the loins of your mind. Shut that voice down. All the various hindrances that come to us in all these different forms, we need to hinder them. We need to stop them. They're going to come. They always come. Satan's always going to cast little darts at us. We should, number one, understand that he will, and number two, we should be prepared to fend them off. We're told on one occasion, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. We are to shut down these thoughts that come into our head, evil thoughts, to do something we're not supposed to do. Shut it down. Get a hold of the thought and put it out of your head. You can do that. You got the ability to shut down a thought and make it go away. You need to exercise that ability. In lieu of the fact that trials come, we know that, and we have heaven reserved for us in our future, we know that. When these thoughts come, gird up your mind so that you're going to be in a position where you can expel them as quickly as possible. Get in a state of mind where you're prepared to do battle. I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to have this in my life. I'm going to shut her down. And when it happens, shut her down. You can do it. You can do it for yourself. You can do it for your family. But it's got to be done. Everybody has to fight the same fight. We all have to endure the same battle. You're not going to have any thoughts that everybody else doesn't have. You're not weird, strange, or different. We're all in the same boat as far as these various trials. Now, there is a besetting sin that we all have that will differ from person to person to person. That is a particular weakness we've got. And inclined to do something that's perhaps immoral, or not do something that we ought to do by obligation, or that we ought to do because it's the morally right thing to do. We have these weaknesses that are unique to us. Now, other people have the same weakness, but not everybody. But when it comes to these temptations to failure, we all have the same ones. Just because you have an evil thought pop into your mind, that doesn't mean you're evil. That means Satan's working on you. He shot a dart at you. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. What you have to do is stop the thought. Okay, the thought came into your mind. I went on to that face page thing yesterday, and somebody was there that I knew, and I looked at their picture, and I went down another picture, and there was a naked woman there, right there on face page. What do? You gotta shut her down. You don't want to linger on such things. Do you know that looking at pornography is one of the major sins in our nation? People love to look at naked people and doing naked stuff, or, well, not just people, it's all kinds of weird stuff. Even children. And so many people, even God's people, are engaged in those kind of activities. And we can't do that. We can't. It makes you ugly when you think on such things. It'll make you ugly in the mind. Well, for as long as I'm here. When you look at little films or pictures like that, you're removing the humanity of a person and making them an object for sexual gratification. In other words, you turn a person into a thing. It's a means to an end. You look at this person as though they're a new car, and you examine the car. This person isn't somebody's daughter in your mind, not somebody's sister. She's the thing. She's an object that's going to make you whatever. When you look at things like that, it makes you ugly in the mind. You lose your humanity, you become ugly. You look at people as objects for sexual gratification, you become ugly. You'll think ugly, you'll talk ugly, you'll be inferring things that are ugly. Ugly will take you over if you engage in such. Even this pornography thing that people are so devoted to, they have no idea what it's doing to their character, their personality. It's chipping away at them all the time. I mean, they go out in public and they're nice and they're all good old boy next door or whatever. But inside the mind, this person is devolving, becoming less of a human being than they actually were, because they're losing their character. And when you lose that, you lost it all. except your soul. I mean, it's next step is losing your soul. I don't think people understand what the price of looking at pornography is. It's a high cost to it. Some people look at children. Boy, I got thoughts on that stuff. I tell you I do. And they're not fun either. Anyway, we are to gather up the loins of our mind. We are to bring ourselves under control where we can stop the things that come upon us suddenly. And be sober. That means don't get drunk. No. Be sober. The word sober means to be calm and dispassionate. Don't be like me, because I'm not always calm and dispassionate. Sometimes I could just talk about child pornography. It gets under my skin big time. And Peter's saying, don't be that way, man. You got to be calm in dealing with these things. It's not that you approve of it, but you've got to bring the temperature down. You've got to be able to talk about it. You've got to be able to condemn it with a voice of reason rather than merely because it disgusts you, okay? You have to be dispassionate in the way you deal with such things. Be calm, deliberate, expel it. In 1 Thessalonians 5 and 6, as well as 1 Peter 4, 7 and 8, or 4, 7, 5 and 8, which we'll get to again. Therefore let us not sleep as others do, Paul said, but let us watch and be sober. Be calm, watching for these various things that can cause us to stumble. Don't get too excited where you can't. When you get like I do, you're likely going to sin, because you're going to get mad and say something you're not supposed to say, or you're going to get mad and do something you're not supposed to do. Okay, that's where you get into trouble. That's why you got to try to teach yourself to be calm rather than allowing your emotions to take control, because nothing good comes from that. Rest your hope fully upon grace. Rest your hope fully. Fully is the key there. Completely. Perfectly set. Expectation and desire. Complete confidence in grace. Why is that so important? I know that any attempt to save myself is in vain. I know it can't be done. I know I can't be good enough. I can't be smart enough. I can't sing enough songs. I can't pray enough prayers. There's nothing I can do to save myself. It's not going to happen. I have to accept that as a matter of fact and throw myself on the grace of God, okay? Salvation will be mine because of divine grace. If I am saved, it's going to be by grace, not by faith, not by works, but by grace. By grace, Paul said, are you saved? Through faith, Ephesians 2 and verse 8. By grace you are saved. Faith makes us the recipient of grace. Now, when Paul talks about faith in Ephesians 2 and 8, he's talking about belief conjoined with works. The two go together in the mind of the apostle. They're married, what God has joined together, belief and works. Okay, so when he says by faith, because of your belief, because of your obedience to the gospel, God bestows grace on you. How am I saved? By grace. Why does God give me grace? Because of my faith. Okay? I've heard people say things like, All people are the children of God. God's not going to send anyone to hell. He'd be sending his own children to hell. What's wrong with that sentiment? Are all people children of God? No, they're not. The only people that are children of God are those who have faith. They're the only ones. Now, what do I mean when I say faith? Belief conjoined with works. Now, that's an important difference there. The demons believe, but they tremble. Well, why do they tremble? Because of their works. They apparently denied the power, the authority of the Almighty. And because of that, they were cast down. They know God exists. They have no doubt about it. But unlike the angels that are with God now, they did not serve him rightly. It appears, in my opinion, that Satan rose up against God because he was proud. He thought he was able to overcome God. And apparently he had a lot of followers that joined behind him. Therefore, the demons tremble. Their faith, their belief didn't help them at all. As a matter of fact, just like Eve and Adam, they both cast their belief aside and went for what felt good at the time. To be a child of God today, we have to have faith. That is in Jesus Christ. Belief and obedience in Jesus Christ. Now then, before Jesus came into the world, there were people who would be saved by divine grace also. Why? Because they had faith. They believed that God was going to provide a substitute lamb to atone for their sins. And when he did, they would be received by God into his bosom. It's sort of on a promissory note. They believe today for grace they would receive tomorrow, okay? That's the way they lived. Now, originally, Adam, for example, Adam would receive divine grace because he believed God and did those things that God told him to do. What did God tell him to do? I don't know. I know he told him to offer an animal sacrifice, and I'm sure he told him to do some other things. But Adam was going to have to believe God and do the things that God told him to do. We don't know what to call it, so we call it patriarchal rule. God gave law to the head of the clan, the tribe. In Adam's case, it would be Adam, of course. And they came down that way for about 2,500 years. That's the way God dealt with mankind in the world. And then he had separated Abraham and made a promise to Abraham. And then there was Isaac, and then there was Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. And around probably 1452, God raised up Moses. And through Moses, Israel became a nation. They had their own constitution. They were given the Ten Commandments to begin with, that was built upon in the years that would follow. But at that time, the Israelite lived under different rule than patriarchal rule. They lived under the Mosaic rule. So you have people, most likely, being saved under patriarchal rule and under Mosaic rule at the same time, okay? We know that there were people being saved at the same time. We got Cornelius in Acts chapter 10, who was living according to patriarchal rule. And because God loved him, he enabled him to become a part of his kingdom on earth. And Cornelius did. And there were also, of course, devout Jews who would be saved under the Mosaic economy. So down through the years, there were two systems operating simultaneously for some 1,452 years. When Christ came, there became one way. It had to be through him. For the Gentile, it would be through Christ. For the Jew, it would be through Christ. Two ways became one way. I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. John 14 and verse 6. The only way anyone ever receives salvation is because they believed God. Every person saved under what we call patriarchal rule, for lack of a better term, every person saved was saved by grace through faith. The same thing's true under the Mosaic economy. Under the Mosaic economy, they lived by faith, supposed to live by faith, belief, and works. They didn't do such a great job, and you know that. The Gentile was a word of mouth thing, from father to son, father to son, father to son. Well, through all that, you're going to lose a lot as you go through the generations. And it appears that when we get down parallel the time with the law of Moses, it appears that perhaps the only thing that Gentiles did was they believed in the Almighty and they believed in the moral law. And that's pretty much all they did. They followed moral law because they believed God existed. God was their God. The Jews, they twisted the law, of course. They lost their faith and twisted the law, and they got out of sorts also until Jesus came into the world. This will be important in the sermon today, so hold on to all that. You get a preview of something. We got 4,000 years of proof that trying to work out your own salvation doesn't work. If you're going to be saved, it's going to have to be by grace. You got all the Old Testament. That's what the whole thing teaches us. They were not able to save themselves. God had to provide a Savior. And when he did, God saved those who believed him. And today, everyone can be saved through Jesus Christ. Rest your hope fully upon God's grace, because that's where salvation is. And that's how we're going to be saved. Grace that is to be brought to you. Future tense, right? Brought to you was the way the apostle is speaking of it. When is it going to be brought to us? Well, it's going to be at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Now, what do we make out of that? Well, am I saved? Yes. How do I know I'm saved? The Bible says so. Am I eternally saved? No. How do I know that? Because eternal salvation will not be bestowed upon me until the revelation of Jesus Christ, until Jesus is revealed. We'll be saved at that point, never to lose our salvation. Today, that's not the case. Now, there are a lot of groups that teach that once you're saved, you're always saved. That's not true. That's just not true. Just because I'm saved today doesn't mean I'll be saved tomorrow. Is God's grace going to fail? No, it's not going to fail. I might fail. And if I fail, the grace that I had today won't be mine to enjoy tomorrow. Therefore, we have to gird up our loins and always be prepared to fight the good fight of faith. Our salvation is not eternal, and we can't afford to let down our guard. No matter what people say, the reception of the crown of life isn't coming in this world. It'll come in the next world. You remember what Jesus said to the church of Smyrna in Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. Be faithful unto death, and then you shall receive the crown of life. It comes after death. There are so many passages in the scriptures that teach that once saved, always saved is not true. And it's sad that so many millions of people think it is and live as though it is, and in reality is not. This grace that saves is to be brought to us. It will be a done deal when Jesus returns. Any questions? As obedient children, this is a neat little phrase. It appears often in scriptures. Obedient children. You ever hear, you've heard of Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur literally means son of Hur. Ben is a Hebraism. It's a way of speech, the way they spoke. When you said Ben-Hur, you're saying the son of Hur. What was his name? I don't know his name, but I know he was the son of Hur. You see, Ben-Hur is not a name, it's a designation. Ben-Hur, son of Hur. Why was that important? Well, it conveys the idea that the son bears the characteristics, the quality of Hur, because he is his son. As a rule, children often bear the image of their parents. I'm not talking just about physical appearance. I'm talking primarily about their nature, their character. Children, if their mama is a Democrat, they're probably a Democrat too. What their mama likes to cook, they'll probably like to cook too. What you're going to find is that there are many, many similarities between the child and the parent, the son and the father, the mother and the daughter and the father. I mean, you bear the qualities of that person. Therefore, they use the word ben, son of. Or you could say children of wrath, ben wrath. Ephesians 2 and 3. If it was Hebrew, it would be ben wrath. What does that mean? The children of wrath. They bear the image of anger. Children of light bear the image of God. Sons of this world bear the image of this world. Sons of light bear the image of God. These terms are indicative of the nature of the person that the writer is speaking about, okay? Here in this case, obedient children would be the children of God who live faithful, obedient lives to God. Christians, in other words. As faithful, obedient children of God would be a drawn-out expression. The blessings, the hopes, the joys, the privileges of sonship, therefore, cannot exist in the absence of obedience. It can't happen. To be the child of God, you have to be an obedient child. And disobedience doesn't qualify as a child of God, at least not faithful child of God. It's imperative that we are obedient to the will of the Father. What he would have us to do, we are to do. One more thing before we move. Every command that we are commanded to do, every suggestion that we are given, everything that the Lord would have us to do, he wants us to do it for our benefit. If I do what the Lord wants me to do, I'm going to profit from it. Now, other people may profit also. For example, the Lord wants me to give as I've been prospered on the first day of the week. Well, other people are going to prosper because of whatever it is I give. But I'm going to prosper too. I'm going to derive benefits from the offering that I give on the first day of the week. Everything the Lord wants me to do is helping me to become more like him. I'm becoming indeed a child of God, one who bears the image of God. Through doing these things that God would have me do. Turning the other cheek. Not exacting vengeance. All the hard things that we are instructed to do, we are to do because these things will contribute to our being like our God in heaven. Everything works together to that end. There's no command that exists that is simply there to torment us. I remember a man told me one time, he wasn't a Christian, but he said, the only thing your God wants is for you not to have any fun. Well, that's not true. I guess it depends on what you call fun. I think I'm better off by not drinking. He drank all the time. I think I'm better off by not drinking alcohol beverage. Because for one thing, I got more money than I'd have otherwise. For another thing, I've set a better example. For another thing, I haven't lost my driver's license. For another thing, I'm not addicted to it. There are so many benefits to that by my avoiding such thing. There's many benefits I've received, and there are benefits other people have received. My point is, when we don't obey what the Lord would have us to do, we're not receiving the benefit intended for us. I'm cheating myself. When I don't do what the Lord wants me to do because it makes me feel better, in reality, I'm not coming out better. I'm coming out for the worse. Remember that. A lot of passages teach the importance of that. 1 John 2:4 says, he who says, I know God and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. There you go. If I don't do what the Lord would have me to do, I know what I have to know what the Lord wants me to do before I can reject doing it. There are things I don't know God wants me to do, okay? And same thing with you. I can't do what I don't know God wants me to do. And that's where grace comes in. But those things that I know to do that are going to benefit my life, if I don't do them, I got a problem. As obedient children, not conforming to the former lusts. Moses wrote it like this: you should not follow a crowd to do evil. Most people are followers, not leaders. Leaders are few and far between. Most people, they're sheep. They follow the head sheep, whatever the head sheep might be. The head sheep might be a good sheep. The head sheep might walk you off the cliff. But sheep will follow the chief sheep. in their walk. They follow the crowd. People do the same thing. I know everybody denies it. I'm not following no crowd. I'm an individual. Blah 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 blah. And then we go home and we put on our Nike tennis shoes. I mean, people follow a crowd. I don't know what else to say. Somebody gets on TV and says something important. I don't know who anybody is. So somebody that kids like, for example, gets on TV and says something, all of a sudden that's the big thing. There's always some big thing. On Fox every Sunday, they tell what the big thing is at this time with I guess you call them older teenagers, 16 to 21 or something. But what the big thing is now, somebody said something and all the kids make, what is that, 6-7 thing? Where did that come from? And all of a sudden the whole world jumped on it. People are followed. We all are to a certain degree. And Moses is saying, don't be a follower, be a thinker. Don't be a follower. Think before you leap. In the New Testament, Paul said, do not be conformed to this world, using the same world Peter did. We got time. Is that 5 minutes we got? Okay. Gentile Adam, 4004 BC. I mentioned this earlier. Some 2,500 later, around 1500 BC. I say 1500 to round it off, you make it easier. I can't compute all the little numbers. I go for the big ones. We have the birth of the Israelite nation. The Gentile lived primarily under patriarchal rule. Israelites lived primarily under Mosaic rule. The moral code was what the patriarchs, those who lived under what we call patriarch rule. Please don't think that there's such a thing as a patriarch rule. This is just something men made up in order to identify it. That's all. It's not a divinely given name. It's just a way of pointing out the time period. But they lived predominantly under a moral code. The Israelites lived under a moral code, but their big thing was the law. That's what they hung their hat on, was the law. If you do the law, you're going to be saved. Whether you believe it or not, they're kind of like the Catholics. It doesn't matter if you believe, as long as you obey the law. That's all that matters. Each forsook the law over the process of time. By the time we get to when Christ came into the world, there were very few people that actually followed God. Under the Gentile, we got the man Cornelius I mentioned earlier. He was one who followed God. Why? Well, he was a Gentile. He believed in God. And he believed that a person ought to keep the moral law. And he did. He kept the moral law. He didn't keep the ceremonial law because that was given to the Jews. He was a Gentile. But he did keep the moral law, believing that that law came from God. And then under the law of Moses, we got the man Nathaniel. Remember, Jesus met Nathaniel and said, behold, an Israelite indeed. In other words, he's the real deal. He's a true blue Israelite, something that was hard to come by in Israel in the first century. He was the real McCoy. God spoke to the Gentiles, mouth to ear, mouth to ear. God gave the Israelites a written code to follow. They had something on paper that they could look to, that they could follow. The Gentiles ultimately rejected the moral law. The most part did. There were some that still lived by the moral law. There were some that God would claim as his people. I don't know what some are. It could have been 10, it could have been 10 million. I have no idea. Under the Mosaic law, of course, the Jews, as we know, they abandoned the law for all practical purposes in the first century. Everything went haywire. Now, why do I say all that? Because of this. I want to show you, this is how we try to understand the Bible. Peter said, not conforming yourselves to your former lusts. Well, when you think about it, Who is he speaking to? Not conforming yourselves to the form of law. Who has he got in mind when he makes a statement like that? Who is it that depended on the moral law? And who is it that depended on the written law, the ceremonial law? It would appear from his statement, not conforming yourselves to the former lusts, that the apostles got the Gentile in mind. Because this is the way they lived prior to becoming Christians. The Jew, on the other hand, lived according to the law, and generally things are referenced by the law. In Ephesians 4:17 and 18, this I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that you should no longer walk as the rest of the Gentiles walk, in the futility of their mind, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart. That was the failure of the Gentiles. They had abandoned the moral law. They turned a blind eye to it. They weren't keepers of the written law. They didn't have one. But they did have a moral code to follow, and they, for the most part, they failed that by the time the Lord came into the world. But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Holy. Holy. Pure. Sanctified. Holy. Be holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. Jehovah said long ago, writing to the Jews, he said, you shall be holy, rather to the Israelites. You shall be holy, for I am holy. And, 1 Thessalonians 4:3 and 7. And I didn't get done. Boy, I wanted to get done so bad. We'll, Lord willing, we'll come back here next week and start with verse 16 or 17. I have to think about that a little bit.